Hey, welcome into the PHNX Cardinals podcast presented to you by the DraftKings Sportsbook app, America's top-rated sportsbook app. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a 5-star review. I'm Johnny Venerable. He's Bo Brock. Joint practices for the Arizona Cardinals as they prep for the Tennessee Titans with the Tennessee Titans, Bo Brock. And a lot of fun takeaways. We were just talking about it off air. Thank goodness there was a spirited, heated practice to talk about.
Yeah, and DeAndre Hopkins reminding everybody, if in case they forgot, that he is still an elite wide receiver, put on an absolute show in Nashville against the Titans. It's like the Arizona Cardinals going to Tennessee. It seems to be just a magic elixir for this team. They seem to just have a lot of success there. And the Titans, now the last two times, are trying to pick up the pieces after the Arizona Cardinals came to town.
That's right. Everybody remembers last year's ass kicking in week one. The Titans were the number one seed in the AFC. But before all of that, in the playoffs, Kyler Murray and company went to Tennessee week one and put up 5 touchdowns on the young Titans. And sounds like the Cardinals, by and large, based on the comments from Mike Vrabel, their head coach, that being the Tennessee Titans, gave their AFC counterpart a pretty good ass kicking in practice today. You mentioned DeAndre Hopkins. Listen, it's criminal. It's a shame he's not playing within the first 6 weeks. He looks fantastic, as good as he's ever looked. You know, Byron Murphy had a pick to end practice. That's on Twitter. He looks fantastic. Zach Allen looks good. I mean, there's a ton to talk about, but I think we should start first with the cornerback room, Bo Brock, because Byron Murphy has kind of, I think, flown a little bit under the radar to begin the season based on the fact that, number one, we have all this concern surrounding Marco Wilson. Robert Alford isn't back. There's been talk about moving Byron inside, keeping him inside. Will he play outside? He's in a contract year. And then he has one of his best days of practice today against, another team. I think it just speaks to, we shouldn't forget about Byron Murphy, and potentially maybe this is the year. He started out fast last year, but Bo Brock, maybe this is the year that the number 33rd overall pick back in 2019 puts it all together and becomes that, top 10 cornerback in the NFL that we all think he can be.
I mean, this is all what the Arizona Cardinals wanted. They want to have their stars fly under the radar. They want their guys to there to be a massive smokescreen as far as what their true role is going to be and how this organization is going to utilize them. And, they'll throw out little buzzwords in phrases in press conferences and say that, we want to play Byron inside. And, it might be at a necessity that he's playing outside, but he's looked fantastic. At least he did in his first real reps of this training camp and preseason. And to kind of see that and see this team as a whole kind of play so well, it proves a very valuable point that when the lights come on, that this team can turn it on. And that's a big, big key here for this Arizona Cardinals team, including Byron Murphy, because they all fly under the radar because they're not doing anything. They're not playing in preseason games where most of the fans and people can watch them. Nobody's hyped about James Conner and could he duplicate his season? Is he going to be a fantasy darling again? And Kyler Murray continues. The last time we saw Kyler Murray playing a game was against the Rams. So that was the last taste the national audience got of this Arizona Cardinals team. And I think they want it that way. They want to fly under the radar until week one against the Kansas City Chiefs so they can have the absolute element of surprise. I mean, remember when Cliff Kingsbury was the head coach, Johnny? They'd just hired him. And we had no effing clue what this offense was going to look like. And they gave us 3 plays in the preseason. It was just
they were hiding everything.
They hide everything. That's just how that's part of their game. And today, I don't want to put too much stock in a joint practice, but it's been more important than the results that we've seen in the preseason so far. I think you have to believe that.
No question. Preseason, with all due respect, backups, third to fourth stringers, right? I agree with 91 Claycomb in the chat here. Byron Murphy was compromised in the second half of last year, but he was fantastic in the first half. Probably was on a Pro Bowl trajectory last year. If you remember the game against the LA Rams in, I think, week 4 when both teams were 3-0, overstepping or undercutting. Either it was Odell Beckham or Cooper Kupp had an interception.
Deshaun Watson.
I'm
sorry, Jackson. Deshaun
Jackson.
Sorry. Yeah.
Forget he was even on the team.
Yeah.
But Byron played some of his best football within the first 8 to 10 weeks, as did many of the Cardinals, and that's what led them to their undefeated record. And then everybody kind of fell off a cliff in the second half because of injuries, because of lapses, coaching, whatever it was. But Byron, to me, we had a chance. He, shameless plug, friend of the program. He was at our NFL draft party in late April, Bo, and you just forget how young he is. He is a baby in this league. Isn't he like 23, 24 years old? He came in the NFL. He and Kyler were their first and second round picks, respectively, back in 2019. And we all know Kyler's young. He's 25 years old. Byron is even younger than that, coming out of Washington. And now he is the default leader in the secondary. There is no Robert Alford now, or presumably there won't be for the foreseeable future. It is Byron Murphy's opportunity, number 7 now, to take this position unit by hold. And again, I have legitimate concerns. We're going to talk about Antonio Hamilton later, but Marco Wilson's not had a good camp, right? A bunch of unproven guys. Josh Jackson, say what you want. Byron is your known commodity. And maybe, Bo, maybe it just takes the Cardinals to thrust that responsibility onto him, saying, like, this is it, Byron. You're our CB1. You're going to get everybody's best week in and week out. We know you struggled in the second half of last year, especially in the red zone, gave up a lot of touchdowns. But we feel like you're going to put it all together. And then as a result, Byron, we're going to pay you at the end of the year what we both feel like you deserve.
Yeah, I mean that's the absolute like glass half full outlook on this. And sure, I mean I don't think that Byron has given you any reason in practice or obviously not playing in preseason to think otherwise. I mean year 3 is huge as far as, or 4 is huge as far as development, and he's playing for a contract, and if he's going to do it, he's going to do it this year. It's going to be big for him to see what he's either going to get to be retained and sign a huge extension, or what he's going to get on the open market. Can he be the next guy to kind of parlay these contract years into a big payday? And the only way to do that is to really show up and show out during the regular season. And he's got, I'd be hard pressed to find a impending free agent corner that's going to have more pressure on their shoulders than Byron Murphy, just based on the talent or lack thereof around him. I mean, it's going to be big for him. I think that we realistically need to be looking at him as playing on the outside.
Yeah.
Look very similar to the role like he played last year. And we'll probably see Isaiah in the slot. Maybe whoever doesn't start outside of Antonio and Marco, maybe they slide in there. They're playing nickel. So it's really going to be interesting. But, I think very few answers that we have as far as this defensive secondary, at least the cornerback room, it's Byron Murphy that you can rely on him to play solid ball.
Well, you mentioned Isaiah Simmons. One of the tweets we got out, and the reporters that were in Nashville covering practice doing a fantastic job. Something that you've seen on regularity, Bo, when you've been at practices, is the fact that Isaiah Simmons, you talk about potentially hiding things. Feels like they might be hiding Isaiah Simmons' role just a little bit. Where we got noticed today playing pass rusher, playing corner, or we feel like nickel corner, slot corner, and also talking about, playing, I think, inside linebacker, secondary, edge rusher. I mean, he's going to have kind of be a jack of all trades, and they've tried that in the past, but no more so than they've done in this offseason, really leaning into it. And I get it. I know there was a report like he got burnt deep on a play and whatever. Like you give up plays, it happens. It's practice. It is what it is. But I will say, like, if they are able to manufacture pressure with Isaiah, I think that's a win, because I think it's his pass rushing ability, which was so often on display at Clemson, has been grossly underutilized by Vance Joseph and the Cardinals. He's fantastic in coverage. I mean, like, I want to see Isaiah everywhere but what his role has been, and that's the traditional downhill run stuffing inside linebacker, because I think he's just too talented.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, it was interesting to see the quote from Ryan Tannehill about how the Arizona Cardinals defense was just throwing looks at them that they'd never seen before and that they'd never seen at the NFL level. And, Vance Joseph, we know that he's a rascal, right? He likes to dial up pressure from weird spots and weird situations, and he's just not your traditional defensive play caller. And, with his back against the wall, without having an elite pass rush specialist like Chandler Jones, and not having, guys that he can rely upon in the defensive secondary, he's going to have to really turn this defense into that amoeba where opposing offenses, they won't be able to diagnose what they're seeing right from the jump and use that to their advantage, because they're going to have to pull out all the tricks right now. All the tricks that Vance Joseph has, he's going to have to throw them in game one too, Johnny. I mean, it's going to be up against one of the most elite offenses in the NFL that it has to offer. So, it's Isaiah Simmons. He's a big part of that because he's the most versatile of all the players, and he's going to be the one that's going to be moving around more often than anybody else. And you hope, you hear that, it was reported that he learned 6 positions during his rookie season, and that's drinking from a fire hose. And you saw him look a little bit more comfortable, but still was lost a little bit last year. You hope that he's just dialed in. He knows everything that he needs to know to be successful and be that versatile defender that they want him to be.
I don't think it's going to be seamless. When we talked to Vance Joseph after, what was it, the red and white scrimmage or one of the open practices, and we asked about both of those players, both Zaven Collins and Isaiah Simmons, and it really felt like Vance was just like, Isaiah needs to learn the playbook and learn what we're throwing at him. And I mean, that is, I would say, not encouraging for the fact that you're saying that about a third-year player, but also if you're trying to make up his role from scratch, maybe it's on you, the coaching staff, for giving him too much. I mean, it's hard enough to play one position in the NFL, and you're going to ask this kid to play 3 or 4. Here's what I think we should all temper our expectations for Simmons early in the year, just like the defense as a whole. I think everybody's going to be kind of feeling out their roles a little bit. It's going to be a learning curve. A bunch of new faces are going to be starting on this defense, especially in the back 7, especially in the secondary. Give Isaiah Simmons some grace if it doesn't look great, because listen, I think the Cardinals offense, there's a lot of expectations, and rightfully so. And we expect Kyler Murray and the offense to be pumping on all cylinders, even without D-Hop. But the defense, to me, you've got Isaiah Simmons playing a new role. Zaven's playing full-time. The cornerback situation's a hot mess disaster, at least to the public. There's no Chandler Jones. We need to take a deep breath there and just say, okay, let's just take away some baby steps, some positives, even if the final score might be ugly defensively. I do like this comment from Jalen Blair. This, of course, came out of reports that Zach Allen, quote, couldn't be blocked. Zach looks like he put on maybe 30 pounds. He is enormous. And the biggest thing for Zach, I think, is consistency, Bo, and being on the field, staying out of the training room. He is kind of a J.J. Watt Jr.-esque type of player. Saw the pick 6 last year. Very athletic. Has always been super athletic coming out of Boston College. First pick in the 3rd round. These are the kind of players the Cardinals, and I give them credit. We all pound the table for free agents. Go sign Trey Flowers. Go sign Joe Hayden, blah, blah, blah. Cardinals are dead set this year, for better or worse, finding out what they have internally. Do we need to pay Byron Murphy? Okay, let's make a decision this year. He's our CB1. Are we going to pay Zach Allen? Okay, we're not going to sign any defensive linemen. Go and play 17 games. We'll write you a check in February, March if you play well. And I'm all for that, because again, the same thing. You say the same thing with Simmons and Zaven Collins, everybody else. The defense is very much the trades are coming on offense. The acquisitions: Hollywood Brown, Cody Ford, Will Hernandez, Zach Ertz last year, Trey McBride. All the new pieces are on offense. It really does feel like, Bo, the defense is run it back with everybody we had in house last year. Make it work, and if you don't make it work, then we're moving on this off season. And you know what? I don't hate it, because I've seen this organization too many times, Bo, not play somebody or not put them in the best position to succeed, and then they go elsewhere, like a Devondre Campbell, like a Hassan Reddick, and they have a rejuvenation to their career.
I love what I've seen from Zach Allen, a guy that got healthy this offseason. He had ankle surgery, basically said his ankle, he really didn't have any kind of ligaments around his ankle. That doesn't sound great. I can't imagine that it translates to being a successful football player. But I'm not a doctor, nor am I, an expert NFL X's and O's guy. But, Zach Allen, all I've seen from him all training camp is he's J.J. Watt's shadow. And it's more actually of 2 peers, two colleagues, talking shop and talking about how they can get each other. Yeah, absolutely. And when JJ Watt's been out, like the lone practice I was out in Tempe at yesterday, it was Zach Allen. He was when the defensive guys, especially those interior guys, got to in their own huddle, it was Zach Allen leading those guys. And you like the kind of he's stepping up, as there is kind of a void in leadership on this, relatively young defense outside of J.J. Watt, that Zach Allen in a contract year is poised with the caveat, right? Can he stay healthy? And if he can, look out, because he's a guy that's making some noise and made some noise today from our sources there at camp. Darren Urban did a great job from azcardinals.com, and Cam Cox from 12 News. Those were our sources. I saw Ben Arthur from covering the Titans had a couple interesting just tidbits. So it seemed like it was a solid day. You know, Cliff Kingsbury said they got exactly what they wanted out of this, and that's exciting to me. I mean, I think, you know, from a very subdued training camp and preseason for this Arizona Cardinals team, for them to go into Nashville, have this one day because they knocked it down because they were bit by the injury bug, to have such a successful kind of couple hours out there in Nashville, that's good for this Arizona Cardinals team.
So I just put together, this is a list of like 5 or 6 guys the Cardinals have taken the top 4 rounds since Kyler Murray was drafted in 2019. Let's see if I can display this on the screen here. So we've got Zach Allen, Byron Murphy, Zaven Collins, Isaiah Simmons, Rashard Lawrence, Lecky Fotu. This is the year where we find out if what we have with all of those guys. Byron Murphy, Zach Allen are free agents to be. Zaven Collins didn't play last year. Simmons is in, I would say, a critical year as the top 10 pick. And Rashard Lawrence and Lecky Fotu, listen, if they pop, maybe the Cardinals don't have to splurge on, you know, a free agent or a draft pick next year. But I can tell you one thing. If Rashard Lawrence, Lecky Fotu, and Zach Allen are all underwhelming, and Watt is your best defensive lineman, or he gets hurt, like the Cardinals are going to remake their defensive line. So everybody on this list right now needs to make a case to stick around. It's just so funny. Like, it's all on the defensive side. I have no question marks about anybody on the offensive side that this team has drafted and developed, right? I feel really good. I've seen Rondale Moore flash enough. Like, if he stays healthy, he's going to be a really nice player. You know, we know what Kyler Murray is. The offensive line, DJ Humphries just got extended. You know, all the free agents just seem to mesh well. And I think that's just a product of, number one, you did the right thing by hiring an offensive coach in an offensive league. And then also, Kyler Murray makes everybody better. I want to see Vance Joseph make everybody on this list better in 2022. And then, Bo Brock, I am willing to gamble on the Arizona Cardinals. And speaking of gambling, if you download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now, college football right around the corner this Saturday. They call it Week 0. We got some games going on, and you can bet on them using DraftKings. You use that promo code PHNX, bet just $5 on any college football game and get $200 in free bets instantly. That's promo code PHNX, only at DraftKings Sportsbook. ASU's ready to have their heart broken again, as is U of A here locally. We kid, but we love our counterparts at Wildcats and Sun Devils, and you should too. Check out their programming. Also check out DraftKings. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See those show notes for details, Bo.
Listen to Johnny, of course, on PHNX Bets. You can join him and Shane next Wednesday, our last Wednesday. It's right around the corner at Four Peaks on August 31st. Good food, good fun, good beer, hanging with the PHNX crew. You should do it. Speaking of last Wednesday, we're going to be announcing the next winner for our Toast of the Month sweepstakes, just like Johnny and I had the honor of doing last month. Gabriel, he was the winner. He got himself a $50 Four Peaks gift card, PHNX shirt, and a PHNX annual membership. Just go to gophnx.com. Click the link in the show notes on the podcast you're listening to or on the YouTube channel here. You got to be 21 years or older to enjoy the beer, but I believe you don't have to be 21 years or older to join our Toast of the Month sweepstakes. So check that out on the website or in the show notes here on this podcast. Continuing our talk about the Arizona Cardinals and their successful scrimmage today in Nashville. And, you know, it was DeAndre Hopkins that just lit up the world, Johnny. It was the one he told AJ Green. He said, he's just a bad dude. He said, I'm going to go out there. I'm going to make all one-handed catches. And that's just what he did. He just put it on display. And poor Christian Fulton, the defensive back cornerback for the Titans, just got, I think it's criminal to call it him mossing him, because he didn't moss him. I mean, he just body bagged him with his most absurd one-handed catch in the end zone. And DeAndre Hopkins just proved, like, just wait till week 7. Just wait till week 7, because I'm going to be as elite as you ever thought I was.
Stabbing it out of the air, I think, is more appropriate. It's snatching it. Mossing is you go up and you're up against over everybody else. That was mossing it. And we love Hopkins. Hopkins is wasn't Moss like 6'4", 6'3.5", and Hopkins is just over 6 feet. So it makes me sad. I see it, and it's the biggest tease in the world, because we're being robbed of 6 weeks. For a rationale we still don't have, explanation to. And I love how adamant Hopkins is, because he knows it affects not only this year, but his reputation long term. And we all stand behind D-Hop, and Kyler Murray and him look like they're going to explode the second half of this year. And maybe in a weird way, it's going to be the magic elixir bringing him back fresh and healthy for the stretch run of games that helps to get this team and his head coach over this hump late in the season. We got some good questions in the chat I want to get to. Picking Spreads puts out, anyone else find it interesting that our top 4 highest graded defensive players during the preseason are all edge rushers? Victor Dumakaji, Devon Kennard, Dennis Gardeck, Majay Sanders found that interesting. I think so, Bo, but I also know that if Vance Joseph can do anything well, he can manufacture pressure. He did that with Hassan Reddick. He got the best year of Chandler Jones's career, like 20-plus sacks that one season. He got Dennis Gardeck this contract, frankly. Like, he's had issues with the inside linebacking core. Obviously, we don't know what the hell's going on at cornerback, but he knows how to make pass rushers.
He took a guy like Dennis Gardeck, who was, undrafted, working at McDonald's, and then became a special teams ace, and then got 7.5 sacks out of 100 or less pass rush attempts. I mean, that's pretty incredible right there to get it out of, I think Dennis Gardeck would agree with me saying he's not exactly the most elite of pass rush athletes. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's something that this team was going to trust its scouting on. Of course, they were going to see how it played out. Like if the results didn't show up in the preseason games, they probably would have been looking at a player like Trey Flowers, like Miami is doing or reportedly doing today, Johnny. But they feel like, hey, we've got enough there between Dumakaji and we really like what we've seen from Majay Sanders, and I think they like what they've seen from Cameron Thomas, who's drafted ahead, and Devon Kennard. We'll see. He had a good game against Baltimore. He had a TFL, and he had a couple splash plays there. So yeah, it's good. It's encouraging. I mean, but it is against we haven't seen them against true ones. Can they do it when it's a little bit when the regular season game, when it actually means something? That's going to be huge for the Cardinals.
Another good question here. Lance S. Question: if we lose the first 4 out of 5 games, is Vance on the hot seat? I've been of the mindset, Lance, that if the Cardinals struggle this year, and it's clearly on the defensive side, he's going to be the sacrificial lamb. And that's not to say Cliff Kingsbury is escaped from responsibility. Clearly, he'd be taking the heat nationally. But he and Steve Keim just got their new contracts. The Cardinals have invested so much into this team offensively. It almost feels like, again, with those players I brought up just a little bit ago, Bo Brock, like it's not a last stand kind of thing. They want Vance Joseph to be around. They like Vance Joseph. They feel like he's done a good job. But, I mean, all those guys that they've drafted under his watch, those were highly touted prospects. Byron Murphy and Zach Allen were 2 of the highest. They were top 50 draft picks, draft analyst grades back in 2019. There's so much talent. You've got 2 first-round inside linebackers on your roster. Like, is it inexcusable to have a defense that struggles, week 1 to week 17? I think so. I don't think you can be a 4th-year defensive coordinator with the same group of guys and just completely fall off a cliff. That said, like I mentioned earlier, I expect some transition in the first 4 to 6 weeks as people get comfortable in their new roles, of course, and the Cardinals' schedule doesn't help anything. But, Bo, I'm of the mindset, like, if it feels like that they missed the playoffs this year in an ugly fashion and the offense does its part, like, he could be gone.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a different qualifier, right? I mean, I think that as far as the first 4 to 5 games, and if they looked overmatched, if they look absolutely brutal, if they look like the beginning of 2019 where, they're just a hot knife through butter from the opposing offense, then yes, that's an indictment as far as poor coaching. And it's just, I don't care how much money you didn't spend on the defensive side of the football. It's you got to have a better product than that. But 4 or 5, like, I think that they'll be, if they're competitive and they're just losing games, I don't think that they'll look to scapegoat anybody. You see that this organization marches to its own beat, right? Like they love Vance Joseph. Like Cliff Kingsbury believes he's going to be a head coach again after how big of epic failure it was in Denver. I don't care that he didn't have a quarterback. This team believes in him, and look, he's proven that he can do a lot with less during his tenure so far. So that's what you want from your coaches. But that's not without frustration. I'm not oblivious to that, and I'm not making excuses for Vance Joseph. But I think that I mean, you can, if they lose 4 or 5 games and the defense is under the microscope for that, You probably could point to the lack of money that was spent there. Now, who did that? It wasn't Vance Joseph. So
Yeah.
I don't know, but who's the one that kind of can kind of do no wrong, is kind of Teflon in this organization. That's another podcast.
You have to remember too, Cliff Kingsbury didn't have options to find a defensive coordinator. Keim hired Vance Joseph. Vance Joseph came to Arizona having very minimal connections with this organization, and they had to court Vance Joseph here once upon a time because Cliff Kingsbury couldn't build a defensive staff. He didn't have the contacts, and so I think Cliff likes Vance a lot, and he's a co-head coach. He owns the defense for better or worse, and again, I thought he did a great job first half of the year, and then like everybody else, it fell off, and he was partially to blame for that. Should we go ahead?
Let me just say this real quick, and to show that I can play both sides of the line here, and I think it's important because
you're a company man. Don't get me wrong, you're a company man.
As far as like the Chandler Wooten situation, it concerns me, right? We see Chandler Wooten play some pretty solid downs for this team. Brian Baldinger tweeted out a couple videos from his all-22 view of Chandler Wooten making he had 2 tackles for a loss, and he had the pick. I mean, it was thrown right between the 5 and the 0 from the Ravens backup quarterback. But Wooten looked good, and you're like, okay, we're seeing this in the second half preseason game, and it's because all training camp long, and I was there at every single practice, and I saw every single snap that they played. And you see a guy like Wooten, and you like all the things that come from playing in the SEC, playing linebacker for a big program like Auburn, being a captain.
It's almost like those things are important.
You see him buried on the depth chart behind guys still like it's Zaven. Obviously, you want Zaven to get his reps, right? That's the big emphasis here. Then you've got guys like Nick Vigil, who's trying to get up to speed, coming over on a free agent contract. Joe Walker continues to take reps.
No more Joe Walker, please.
I know. That's what I'm saying. It's like these young players continue to take a back seat for whatever reason. And it's just like, why did Chandler Wooten have to make all those big plays just to even get a chance? And who knows? I would guarantee he's going to play a ton on Saturday. Is that going to be enough for the guy for them to keep?
I don't know, but I know there's going to be a mutiny if he gets cut in favor of Tanner Vallejo or Joe Walker, because that's a joke. And again, I know those guys might be more seasoned on special teams, but give me the rookie who's flashed that played big boy football in the SEC. We have seen the best and the worst from Tanner Vallejo and Joe Walker. I don't need to see anymore. No, thank you. All right, let's get to I think the 2 hot button topics, it feels like, for the duration of this preseason are what the hell are they doing at corner and what are they going to do with Andy Isabella? So let's start with cornerback, Bo Brock, because Antonio Hamilton was not at practice yesterday. It was said that he was dealing with he had a doctor's appointment, right? It's like, hey, you got to go have a checkup. He wasn't at practice today. And so that prompted the media in their good graces to ask Cliff Kingsbury why he wasn't at practice. And Cliff said the following: he's still being evaluated, which is new. We didn't know he was being evaluated yesterday. And then somebody followed up and said, well, what's wrong with him? And then Cliff said, of course, in true Cliff Kingsbury fashion, we will let you know week 1 when we have to on the injury report. So Antonio Hamilton has something, and he's their CB2. It's not ideal. I'm not going to pretend to guess what it is because I don't trust Cliff one iota. It's clear it's something moderately severe, that he's missing practice and he's going to the doctor. And then everybody in the chat wants to know, like, if not now, when? Sign some flipping cornerbacks, because right now it's Byron, it's Marco, it's Josh Jackson, and it's a lot of meh. And I don't know, where's the sense of urgency?
I have no clue. I mean, it's been 2 damn years that they've needed cornerbacks. They've needed to upgrade this position, and they just haven't. And they've needed corners. They still need corners. For the love of God, go get a corner. I don't know what's going. Like
get 2 corners.
Even with Antonio Hamilton. Yes, go get 2 guys.
It's sad that we're having this conversation, like, but all due respect to Antonio Hamilton, like he's like some Pro Bowler, like he's some like cemented piece.
Yeah.
I don't feel great with Antonio Hamilton playing regular season snaps. I'm sorry, Antonio.
It's Stockholm syndrome. That's what it is. I mean, we've been beaten in believing that Antonio Hamilton is like, if we don't have him, that's going to be the missing piece. It's like, no, you're missing pieces already, even with him in the fold. So, you would hope that this is a guy that has been waiting for his opportunity. He's been preparing for this opportunity. We talked to him last week, and he's been the bottom of every depth chart that he's been a part of. And now he gets his opportunity, and we don't know what he's dealing with. The quote, it's interesting, like, we'll tell you when we have to tell you. It's interesting. I mean,
Cliff,
like,
you
he
dirty
tells us
dog.
that, yeah, like that Pugh's dealing with a stinger, and he's telling us, it's a minor knee for Marquise Hayes, but they don't want to tell us what's going on with Antonio Hamilton. I don't know how they decide what they want to disclose and what they don't, or if it's just something that it's not like a normal football injury like a knee or something, and they're just trying to figure it out.
Picking spreads. I mean, this I think underlines everything. They had huge plans for Jeff Gladney. Steve Keim called Jeff Gladney and said it was like having 2 firsts this year. They really did believe he was going to play a big part in their secondary. I'm not going to begin to pretend like he was lighting the world on fire during off-season team activities, but he was around. The guys really liked him. It's horrific, tragic what happened to him, and it threw a wrench in their plan. But I'm not using that as an excuse because that happened when late March, early April. They still had the draft and much of free agency left, and they
Oh,
haven't done
July 4th.
anything. When was it?
Wasn't it July 4th?
I thought it was right after. Maybe it was later. You're right. You're right. It was later. Well, they still had opportunities to sign people in free agency, and they worked out every corner imaginable in the draft, and they didn't take one until Christian Matthews later. You mentioned Justin Pugh, and I was kicking around this idea earlier today. They gave up a pretty significant pick for Cody Ford, who wasn't supposed to start in Buffalo, who is going to be in a contract year. Is there something we don't? Is Cody Ford a contingency plan if like Justin Pugh opts to retire? And I was thinking about that today. Pugh floated around the idea of retirement this offseason. Like he's retiring after this season. He almost retired this offseason. He lost all this weight. Do you like what if I put the odds 50-50? Are those good odds that Justin Pugh stays or retires? I feel like it's even money right now that we could maybe not see Justin Pugh again. And that might be running with a narrative that's not out there yet. Let's say his stinger is in his neck, right? Like, is he coming back from that, or is he just like, guys, I'm going to do my own thing? Because what would prompt the Cardinals to make this trade for Cody Ford? And immediately he gets there. Cody Ford was today at practice in Tennessee, and he's starting at left guard. I don't think we're done with that story yet, Bo. I don't think we can sweep that under the rug.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting, and not one to just kind of. I think like a lot of the things this offseason, it's not nothing, right? It's not. But I'm more excited about what's the reports were on Cody Ford getting in there, and
Yeah,
he's
of course.
nasty. That he was able to just get in there, pick up enough about the offense, because what we've heard even from Hollywood Brown, it's very similar to what they did at Oklahoma. For him to slide in there and be able and get the what people were kind of saying about his game, how he's nasty. You love that. You love that, especially when with like the arch enemy being Aaron Donald of the Arizona
Yeah.
Cardinals. You love that you've got two interior just dogs, just Rottweiler, pit bull type guys, and Will Hernandez and Cody Ford, who are going to make damn sure that number 99 doesn't step out of line. A guy who has an affinity for putting his hands around opposing players' necks and stuff like that. That ain't happening. Like they're going to play the Dennis Rodman of the Bulls, where if you step out of line, those guys are going to get in your face. I like that they have an edge. They still have to prove a lot on the field as far as protection and all that and run blocking, but I like that they have an edge. I think that these are two guys that can go for broke this season. That it's a very, it's a huge part of their careers to prove that they can play at this level. I like that they've got two dogs that they can lean back on, because I feel like guys like Rodney Hudson and Justin Pugh have made their money. They've played a long career, and they've already done it. And I like that you have a mean streak in a couple of these guys.
Yeah, I would say I'm 100% with you. Nastiness is something this offensive line has not been associated with, and I agree with Lance. I like the depth up front still without Pugh being out, or with Pugh being out, with Marquise Hayes being out. Got some interchangeable pieces. Right, Raymond saying let's not forget Marquise Hayes. I think we all are hoping that he can be somebody that is a factor on this offensive line sooner rather than later. Either one, I don't know about this. I would love to see this happen. Hernandez is the Donald neutralizer. Giants fans may scoff at that, but he's looked fantastic during Cards camp. Hernandez, Hudson, Ford is your interior offensive line today. What a stark contrast to what we saw last year when it was Max Garcia and Justin Pugh and whatever, Josh Jones at times. Not a good fit, but I'm going to tell you what is a good fit. more furniture hooked up the entire office at PHNX. We have our new office under construction right now. It should be ready, I want to say, in a couple days, maybe hopefully this time next week. It'll be ready by the start of the season. And if you like what you see, hopefully with our new studios and most importantly with our new furniture, you can check out morefurniture.com. They've got a huge Labor Day sale. Just visit morfurniture.com. And speaking of outings and good times this fall, as we prepare for another playoff run with the Arizona Cardinals, come and hang out with us at our tailgate events for every home game. Myself, Bo Brock, Saul Bookman, Shane Diefenbach, PHNX Tailgate is going to be out by the stadium, hanging out, doing live shows, drinking Four Peaks, having a good time. We want to see you there, but we also want to see you there happy and healthy. So go get a COVID-19 vaccine ASAP. They're free for everybody 5 and older. Those 12 and older are also eligible for a booster. All you got to do is visit azhealth.gov/find vaccine for the location nearest to you, and then come hang out because we want to hang out with you.
And we want to give you more free stuff. OGeez, our friends, the Arizona Cannabis Kitchen, OGeez brands. They've got the Flavoring Life sweepstakes that you can enter to win not 1, not 2, but 3 bags of their unbelievable gummies, including the orange creamsicle, their tropical flavors, OGeez hat as well, a PHNX shirt of your choice, PHNX annual membership. Sign up at gophnx.com. Click the link in the show notes. Check out OGeez online at OGeezBrands.com or on Instagram at OGeezBrands. That's OGEEZ Brands. And you can find their products at your local dispensary. You must be 1 year or older to purchase. If you don't win the Toast of the Month sweepstakes, John, if you don't win the Flavoring Life sweepstakes, which would get you some sweet PHNX gear, we've got an incredible chance right now. We've got our PHNX summer sale going on, and you can get some of our hottest t-shirts for 50% off. Look at that. Oh my God. I'm looking at our Bird Gang one. That's one of our top sellers. You can get that, I think, for what, $19.99 right now. The not Kyler Murray shirt. And then you've got a couple shirts that are going for like $14.99. Some smoking deals there. Our hats are on sale. Go check out what's on sale for the PHNX Locker summer sale. Up to 50% off. That's phnxlocker.com.
And you know why we're doing that. We got new stuff coming. So before the new stuff comes, get some of the season stuff to rep it this fall with us. I got my Diamondbacks tee on right now. And that team is hot garbage, but we rep them anyway because we rep the Valley, right? Cardinals, we feel like we're going to be pretty decent here. And, speaking of decent, we transitioned into our last segment, and I put out a comment, Bo, on the old Twitter streets yesterday because I'm getting a lot of feedback that, Johnny doesn't like Andy Isabella. He doesn't want him around. And that, part of that's probably true. But I wanted to take a pulse of the fan base because Andy's had a nice offseason. And I asked everybody, would you rather just keep Andy Isabella right now, knowing you've got uncertainty with Antoine Wesley, who does not look like his return's imminent? He hasn't been practicing. Hopkins is fantastic, but we don't see him till week 4, right? So the depth chart isn't great without, those 2 guys. Or would you rather just take what you can get? And I'm not saying cut Andy outright, but if somebody came and said, we'll give you a 6th-round pick for him or 2 7ths or whatever, rotational player. And I was surprised, Bo Brock. I would say 75%, 3 out of 4 people were like, I don't want to just give Andy away. I want to keep him just in case, unless you get something substantial. Some people are throwing around like mid-rounders. I'm like, all right, guys, pump the brakes a little bit. Put down the OGeez, put down the Four Peaks, right?
Right.
But I was surprised. I thought a lot of people, and depending, we're prisoner of the moment. He's playing well, but if you fast forward to when he wasn't playing well, everybody said, cut his ass, get his ass out of here. So I'll pose it to you. Like, is it worth just scooping up an extra 6th-round pick potentially next spring? Or is Andy done enough where you're like, I would be comfortable with him having to play out of necessity? This is his 4th year with Kingsbury. He's had a good preseason. His speed is a problem. He's drawing penalties. I'll put you on the record right now. What say you?
Absolutely. You trade him for whatever you can get.
Wow.
This is the
even a 2023 4th round, 7th rounder.
This is the shirt. This is the pants that you bought, you held on to for so long. You wanted to wear them, but you look ridiculous in them. If you can get some lottery tickets in exchange for these, if you can get anything, if you can go on OfferUp and trade anything and get anything of value in return, do it. Because look, it's not you don't just have Andy Isabella anymore in the wide receiver room. You got a loaded room. You've got two guys that fit similar profiles to what Andy can do. Greg Dortch has already outplayed him and is probably already ahead of him as far as the depth chart's concerned.
Greg Dortch is on the team.
I agree with that. I think that Victor Bolden Jr. could play a role on this team. And I'll tell you this, Jontre Kirkland also has had a phenomenal camp. We're not talking enough about him. He played primarily special teams on a loaded LSU team. He had another big catch for this was when Ben Arthur today from Tennessee covering the Titans. Cardinals receiver Jontre Kirkland scored a touchdown up the sideline in the 2-minute drill. He scored twice in 2 games for the Cardinals. He's been huge for Jerry Garantano. I think if you're looking for a wide receiver 6 who can play special teams anyway, he excels at special teams. If you can get anything of value for Andy Isabella, do it right now. I don't know. Otherwise, if you think you should keep him, you should go on the show hoarding, because like you probably have like a cat buried underneath a bunch of trash that you keep and you're not willing to give up.
A bunch of National Geographics piled up somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it's time
tape.
Give it up at this point. It's just not valuable to you anymore.
I love Raymond's quote right here in the chat. If anybody has watched Isabella play on the pro level, and this is key, once the real bullets start flying, because the regular season is different, should see this as a godsend to get something for him now in a trade.
Well said.
I agree with Raymond. He's had a darling preseason. Congrats to Andy. I think he'll be on an NFL roster this year. Kudos to you. Should it be the Cardinals if somebody comes knocking? Absolutely not. And we saw it mid-season last year. It was reported by big journalism, big J journalists at national networks saying teams are calling on Andy Isabella. Cardinals aren't ready to deal him yet. It's like, what were you doing? If you weren't going to play him in the second half of last season when Hopkins is hurt and Rondell Moore is hurt and Christian Kirk and AJ Green are inconsistent, he got outplayed by everybody. It didn't matter that people were injured or inconsistent or hurt or whatever. He couldn't get on the field. He was inactive, right? He was the guy warming up before the game with Kyler Murray that wasn't active on game day
last year.
So what are you waiting for? I
don't know.
I think they have paranoia that he's. Go ahead.
I know, but you have to give that up at some point.
They have true paranoia that
you don't stay in a relationship just because your girl's going to go hook up with a bunch of other dudes. You can't operate like that. Are you happy or you're not happy?
You have to be prepared that your girl's going to go have success and rebound. And you know what you should say? Kudos to you.
Yes.
Because we're both better off. It didn't work out. But I do think they feel like if he were to go to like a New England or something and have a nice year, catch 40 balls.
Those days
or
are
whatever.
over. There have been like 5 guys, like in Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, who are some of the other guys? They signed a couple lucrative deals, like Nelson Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne, who I think had decent seasons, but like nothing, like they never still reached their potential. Like those days, like Tom Brady's not there anymore. Like those days are over. Will we go catch over 500 yards? And like you say, hey, that's a successful season compared to what we're used to seeing from Andy Isabella. It's the definition of insanity as far as I'm concerned. If you can get anything of value in return, and I know it's a lottery ticket, you take it. Like Cliff Kingsbury has a relationship with Mike Vrabel from their days in New England. And the report was that Andy Isabella caught a bomb from Jerry Garantano today.
Let's make a deal.
He should have gone over there and just been like, "Hey, Braves, you see that? You see that? I know
Pay
you guys
up.
Yeah, you're relying on Treylon Burks this year. Let's get you some more depth at wide receiver. Let's
speed. I think Malik Willis and Andy Isabella could be dynamic in the AFC for a practice squad, maybe. But that's what I think they should do. But I think you and I are both on I think he makes the team. I think he makes the team as wide receiver 4 or 5 or 6, 5 or 6 because of the injuries and the Hopkins absence. So we're not saying that. We don't think he's going to be around. I think we do feel like he's going to be on the team, but I think there could be a trade to be had. If Cody Ford's going for a 5th, Andy Isabella could go for something similar. Depending on how desperate you are, that's a position where, the N'Keal Harry thing's different because he had more money attached to him, and there have been questions about his work ethic. Like Andy, for better or worse, good dude, really good dude, works hard, right? And you could just say like, hey, we just got too much talent. We're too stacked here. We got all these elites and there's just no place for him. but he could go somewhere and be a wide receiver 2 or 3 for somebody. Like, that's bullshit. But if I'm Kime, come on now, work your magic. Although there's no more Bill O'Brien to screw in trades anymore, like once upon a time. I want everybody right now to like this video. It helps share this video on YouTube's algorithm. So go and click that big thumbs up. We're doing these shows on the reg. We've got a big post-game show planned for Saturday night. We can talk about finalizing this 53-man roster for the Arizona Cardinals. And then just 2 weeks from Sunday, guys, Bo Brock's going to be live at State Farm Stadium. Week 1 against Patrick Mahomes and company. We will be in our brand spanking new studio. We cannot wait. But in the meantime, be sure, like and subscribe to the podcast. Our numbers are up, and that's because of all of you. We're having our best month to date. Let's keep this party moving. Let's have a great time. Subscribe to the podcast. Leave us a 5-star review. Like Bo said, check out the PHNX merchandise locker for all the freshest deals that we got going on, because we got many, many more to come. It's been awesome today, guys. We will be back mañana. But for now, peace. Everybody take care. Have a great rest of your day. And I think Bo and I will run this back tomorrow. What do you say, Bo?
Let's do it. 4 o'clock. How about that?
It's a date. See you guys.